SWOT analysis. India. Strength.
Of all the countries in the world, there is probably no other as unique and grand as India. It is ancient and mysterious, illustrious and complex, isolated and yet integral. India, along with its neighbor Pakistan, was home to the Indus Valley civilization, creating one of three of what we call the great civilizations, the other being Sumer in Iraq and ancient Egypt, all originating over 5,000 years ago. India is birthplace to 2 out of the 5 great religions, Hinduism and Buddhism, both of which spread throughout Greater Asia. Economically, India was considered the crown jewel of the British Empire. Its spices from the Malabar coast flavored British cuisines. Indians' cotton textiles shipped from Bombay comforted the world. And when Britain couldn't part value with Chinese merchants, they used opium from the Bihar region to level the field. On paper, India is a global power. It is the world's second largest population, soon to be its first, with nearly 1 out of every 5 people on the planet living in India. It's the world's 7th largest country, but 2nd largest when measuring arable land. And although it is a major oil importer, it is also a major exporter of refined oil, which allows for India to subsidize domestic energy use. Agriculturally, India is the world's tropical breadbasket and exports nearly 40% of the world's rice supply. India alone is the OPEC of rice.
Weakness.
India is one of the least urbanized countries in the world, with an urbanization rate of merely 35.6%, ranking 137 out of 160 countries whose population are over 1 million people. Right between Sudan and Zimbabwe, according to the World Book estimates. Tuberculosis is rampant, averaging 200,000 deaths a year. Bureaucracy is debilitating, ranking 131 out of 144 countries for a number of procedures required to start a business, according to the World Economic Forum's Global Competitiveness Report. The human rights record of India is deplorable. A shock, considering that this is the home to the great civil activist Mahatma Gandhi. India ranks high in metrics of slavery, sex trafficking, terrorism, and child labor, to name a few. It also has the lowest female labor participation rate for a non-Muslim country at 19%, a number which has been declining over the last decade.
Opportunity.
India is 1/3 the size of the United States with 4 times the population. This creates a highly dense and competitive environment. India's relatively low wages and energetic population has made India a key source of labor. This was seen during the British Empire, when Indian labor was imported throughout the empire to the Caribbean, coastal East Africa, Southeast Asia, and the Pacific Islands. Indians came over in a variety of capacities, but many of the communities rose through the ranks economically, creating small but influential minorities in these countries. The most infamous being the Indian community of Uganda, who were brought over in the 19th century for railway construction. They built a prosperous community and were expelled by Ugandan President Idi Amin in 1972. In the modern day, India is the world's nursery, having the largest diaspora on earth across a vast swath of countries. This diaspora sends remittances to India commensurate with its size, totaling to 87 billion US dollars in 2021 alone, with 1 out of every 5 of those dollars coming from the United States, stocking Indian coffers. India labor ranges in skill to construction workers in the Gulf oil states on the Arabian Peninsula to holding 3 out of every 4 of the illustrious H-1B visas in the United States. The world has proven fertile ground to the industrious, enterprising, and skilled Indian.
Threats.
India lacks a worldview. There is no grand strategy or global initiative coming out of New Delhi. The United States looks to spread Western freedom and democracy. Russia seeks to establish buffer regions and satellites around its borders. China is building a global infrastructure to ensure resource security. These are strategic motives that, regardless of the leadership of these countries, these geopolitical aims remain the same. These are the eternal and perpetual interests that British Prime Minister Lord Palmerston famously quotes. For a country of the magnitude and global footprint of India to not have a strategy around geopolitical interests is astonishing and symptomatic of a larger issue. India has not planned to fail, but failed to plan. South Asia consists of India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, and Bhutan, along with the island nations of Sri Lanka and Maldives. India occupies over 70% of the land of South Asia and 3/4 of the population. But South Asia was never unified under a single government, the closest being the British Raj, or British India, which consisted of modern-day India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. This union was an alliance of the British Crown and over 500 princely states of colonial India. Upon independence, British India immediately fragmented along religious lines. Pakistan and Bangladesh as Muslim nations, but India itself was a kaleidoscope of peoples and religion. Although majority Hindu, 20% of Indians are primarily composed of Muslims, Christians, Sikhs, and a series of smaller denominations. Ethnically and linguistically speaking, the South is composed of Dravidians speaking languages such as Telugu and Tamil, while the Indo-Aryans of the North speak Hindi, Bengali, and Marathi. English is only spoken by 11% of the population as a first, second, or third language. All up, there are over 19,000 languages in India, with 121 being spoken by more than 10,000 people. Beyond the linguistic gap, there are multiple groupings of secessionists. The largest are the Maoist Naxalite movement in the Red Corridor of the East. Throughout and between the 8 states that comprise the 7 sisters in the remote Northeast, the ongoing conflict with Pakistan and the Islamic Kashmir to the far north, and south of that is the Kalistan Movement in the Punjab by separatist Sikhs. By most counts, there are over 100 separatist movements to various degrees operating within India. On top of this, the average Indian earns less than $5 a day. There is no end in sight to this plight. To provide example, if we were to use the population density of India and project to the world, the global population will swell from the current number of 8 billion people to 58 billion people. Beyond that, India's population is slated to increase further over the next 30 years, reaching 1.6 billion people by 2050. With all these issues, India has to use all its political energy just to hold this thing together and avoid collapsing under its own weight, which is why there are continual pushes to identify Indianness with Hinduness, better known as Hindutva, a blatant attempt to forge a more homogeneous cultural bond for the sake of national unity. In summary, India is a ball of yarn when plenty of loose strings to pull. One tug could unravel it all.